Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we cut through the noise and deliver the most essential, fascinating insights on the topics you need to know about.
Today, we are putting on our historical detective hats and maybe checking our life insurance policies because we are diving into humanity's most enduring and high-stakes obsession, lost treasure.
We're talking about the colossal fortunes that have vanished beneath the waves, or those secretive caches hidden deep within remote landscapes, guarded by myth and, well, time.
It's an adventure that really spans centuries. It connects empires, and it still sparks these immediate, very intense international legal crises today.
So our mission for this deep dive is pretty specific. We want to tour the world's most famous lost treasures and really try to separate the high-stakes legends from the documented, verifiable facts.
And maybe most importantly, we are going to look at how modern technology, I'm talking autonomous submersibles, ground-penetrating radar, is fundamentally changing how these secrets are uncovered.
And often fought over.
And often fought over, yes.
The global context here is just staggering. I mean, historians estimate there could be as many as 3 million shipwrecks worldwide.
3 million.
And a lot of them were carrying the fortunes of an empire. For centuries, the oceans were basically the greatest highway in human history, moving unimaginable wealth, gold, silver, precious stones.
It makes the seabed a kind of magnet for treasure hunters, right?
Yeah.
They're all seeking to fill their coffers, and that's why hundreds of these major treasure wrecks still remain unexplored.
The whole pursuit of lost wealth, it seems to tap into something primal.
It does. Whether it's the lure of a sunken Spanish galleon or the puzzle of an unbreakable cipher, the cultural roots of these myths are tied to empire voyages, devastating war loot, and just, simple human greed.
Yeah, it's a pursuit where the boundary between archaeological science and commercial salvage is perpetually blurred.
Constantly.
Absolutely. And to really understand that blurring, I think we have to start with the biggest, most controversial find of the 21st century, the one they call the Holy Grail of shipwrecks.
That title, without a doubt, belongs to the San Jose Galleon. This is not just a shipwreck, it's a time capsule. It contains a staggering portion of the Spanish crown's wealth from the New World.
The history is incredibly dramatic. The San Jose sank in 1708, right off the coast of Cartagena, Colombia. It was during the War of the Spanish Succession.
Right, it was caught in this brutal battle with a British squadron, and when it went down, it took with it an astronomical cargo. Estimates usually top out between $17 and maybe $20 billion in gold, silver, and most famously, emeralds.
Massive emeralds from the Muzo mine.
The best in the world. And that immense, almost fictional value is exactly why the story of its discovery is less about discovery and more about decades of intense legal conflict.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Back in 1981, a U.S. investor group, Sea Search Armada, or SSA,
Right, SSA.
they claimed they had located the wreck. And this led to years and years of litigation as they tried to get permission to recover the cargo.
So SSA thought they had found it, but the location was in dispute. Colombia's position was always crystal clear. The treasure was submerged national patrimony.
Meaning it belonged to the state.
Well, stop. Exactly. They disputed SSA's coordinates and eventually passed a law claiming total ownership. This left SSA with only the possibility of, what, a meager finder's fee.
Which, of course, they fought in court for years.
Yeah.
The whole dispute centered on this crucial question of maritime law. Was the wreck inside or outside Colombia's 12 nautical mile territorial waters?
And then the true game changer arrived in 2015.
Okay.
The Colombian Navy officially announced that they had found the wreck using an autonomous underwater vehicle, a Remus 6000. And crucially,
It was in a different location.
a completely different location from the one SSA had initially cited, which effectively sidelined the U.S. salver's original claim.
Wow. That must have been a devastating blow for SSA after all that time and money.
Decades of work. The Colombian government immediately classified the true location as a state secret and moved forward, declaring the galleon state property. But the legal mess, it didn't end there.
Of course not.
Not at all. The conflict just expanded. Spain asserted its claim, arguing that since the San Jose was a Spanish Navy vessel, it should fall under the protection of international naval heritage agreements.
Okay, that makes sense. So you have Colombia, you have the U.S. salvers, now you have Spain.
And then it gets even more complex. Various Bolivian indigenous groups have asserted a claim, arguing that the gold and silver were mined by their ancestors and therefore represent cultural restitution.
It's a legal Gordian knot, a $20 billion prize with 4 different sovereign or cultural entities laying claim to it. And this isn't settled yet, is it?
Far from it. In November of 2025, the Colombian government proceeded with a small initial recovery effort. They brought up and inspected a few artifacts.
What did they find?
Just a cannon, a porcelain cup, and 3 gold and bronze coins. This small haul, while maybe insignificant in monetary value, officially confirmed the wreck's identity and location.
And I'm guessing that just fueled the fires of the international dispute.
Absolutely. It just confirmed the immense historical knowledge and wealth that's contained within.
Okay, let's step back about 200 years from the legal minefield of the San Jose and talk about a vessel that remains undiscovered, yet is still considered perhaps the richest vessel ever lost. The Flor de la Mar.
Flor de la Mar, yeah. It was a colossal Portuguese carrack, a prized possession of the Portuguese royal fleet that sailed between Portugal and India for over a decade. Its loss in late 1511 was just catastrophic.
Why then? What was so special about that particular voyage?
It happened right after the Portuguese captured the incredibly wealthy Sultanate of Malacca.
And what a capture that was. The ship was loaded with the immense riches looted from the Sultan's palace by the legendary general Alfonso de Albuquerque. This wasn't just gold, was it?
No, no. It was royal regalia, priceless artifacts, jewels, and tons of spices. The ship was notoriously top-heavy because of the weight and just the sheer quantity of the loot.
So, a disaster waiting to happen.
Pretty much. As Albuquerque tried to sail this unstable behemoth out of Malacca, it got caught in a violent storm off the coast of Sumatra and sank. Albuquerque himself barely survived, clinging to an improvised raft, but the cargo was utterly lost.
The sheer scale of that treasure, combined with its historical importance, means that 5 centuries later, people are still actively hunting for the Flor de la Mar.
And just like the San Jose, if it's ever found, it would trigger an astronomical legal battle. It's currently claimed by Portugal, Indonesia, and Malaysia. The enduring mystery really shows how historical value and the potential for financial reward can drive these obsessive searches for half a millennium.
Jumping ahead to the 18th century, we find another massive disaster that essentially created the entire industry of American treasure hunting. The 1715 treasure fleet.
This was a colossal loss for the Spanish crown. In July of 1715, 11 Spanish galleons were carrying a 2-year backlog of gold, silver, and jewels destined for King Philip V.
A backlog, so double the usual amount.
Exactly. 7 days after departing Havana, they were struck by a devastating hurricane. The ships were absolutely pulverized and scattered along Florida's east coast.
The value was enormous. The manifest recorded 15 million pieces of 8. We're talking about the primary silver coin used in the Spanish Empire, like a silver dollar.
In today's terms, that haul is estimated to be worth around $400 million, though of course its historical value is exponentially greater.
Now, the Spanish did manage to salvage some of it, right?
They did. They salvaged about 5 million pieces of 8 initially, but the rest lay hidden, scattered by the hurricane and the currents along the coastline.
And this entire stretch, encompassing Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River counties. That's where the name comes from.
Precisely. It rightfully earned its name. The Treasure Coast.
This brings us into the modern era and the legal battles that define salvage law. Mel Fisher's company initially acquired the rights to these wrecks. But later, in 2010, those rights were passed to Brent Brisbane's company, Queen's Jewels LLC.
And Brisbane's tenure is a perfect example of why these wrecks keep giving up treasure. He hit the jackpot just 17 days after purchasing the rights.
17 days.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
His team found a bronze swivel cannon from one wreck, and when they were inspecting it, they realized nearly 100 coins had been stuffed inside the barrel.
Stuffed inside a cannon.
Stuffed inside. It totaled almost $900,000 in value. The fact that people were stuffing coins inside a cannon barrel suggests, extreme desperation or secrecy, maybe even smuggling, right before the disaster struck.
That's a great point. And the discoveries have continued, haven't they?
They have. In 2015, on the 300th anniversary of the sinking, subcontractors recovered an astonishing $4.5 million in gold 350 Spanish doubloons.
Wow. And these weren't just common coins, I take it.
No, many were exceptionally rare Royal Mint pieces. It really speaks to the persistence of these caches. When Brisbane described the finds, he said the wrecks were wanting their story to continue.
What he's really describing is the fact that the initial Spanish salvage was incomplete, the wreckage field is vast, and the environment, those sandy Florida shoals, is constantly shifting and revealing new sections of the historic disaster.
Exactly. The ocean gives up its secrets, but only a little at a time.
So while the oceans hold billions in documented treasure, The land holds an entirely different kind of mystery. Cryptic fortunes, often protected by codes, legends, and some very dangerous terrain.
And nothing embodies that mystery better than the Beale ciphers, a 2-century-old puzzle that has baffled cryptographers and led generations of hunters into the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia.
The legend starts with a man named Thomas Beale, who allegedly buried a fabulous treasure back in 1819, estimated at $60 million today, in gold, silver, and jewels.
And he left the location hidden in 3 ciphers with an innkeeper before just vanishing.
The key to the whole obsession is that one of the ciphers was actually cracked.
Right. The innkeepers eventually shared the ciphers with a friend, and they discovered that one of the 3 codes could be decoded using the U.S. Declaration of Independence as the key. It's a method called a book cipher.
Where each number corresponds to a word in the text.
Yes. And the cracked cipher, which detailed the inventory of the hoard, read like a pirate fantasy. 1,400 pounds of gold, 3,812 pounds of silver, plus jewels. This tangible description of wealth turned the legend into a verifiable goal, even if the location itself remained a secret.
And so the quest began. You have the Hart brothers who spent decades searching, even resorting to methods like mesmerism, which is basically seances.
Shows the sheer desperation, doesn't it? Generated by this single verified inventory.
But here is the critical analytical turn.
Yeah.
The vast skepticism today.
Right. Researchers, including some NSA analysts, they strongly suggest the papers were fabricated. The evidence seems to point towards a guy named John William Sherman, a financially troubled newspaper editor, who had the motive and the means to create a really sophisticated literary hoax.
And Sherman conveniently published the pamphlet containing the ciphers through his cousin James B. Ward, who authenticated the text as true. So, if the Declaration of Independence cracked one, why haven't advanced computers cracked the other 2?
That's the core question, isn't it? It suggests the remaining codes might either be based on a non-public key, a different book only Beale possessed, or, and this is more likely, they're just intentionally non-ciphered gibberish.
Meaning the treasure never existed at all.
And the entire endeavor was a money spinner for the struggling editor. It's a perfect example of how a mix of verifiable fact, the cracked inventory, and intentional deception can perpetuate a myth for centuries.
That pattern of gold, myth, and danger repeats out west with one of America's most lethal legends. The Lost Dutchman's Gold Mine.
Yes. Located in the forbidding Superstition Mountains of Arizona, this is a cache that has claimed dozens of lives. The myth credits Jacob Waltz, a German immigrant, the Dutchman, with discovering massive gold veins.
And the story goes that Waltz rescued a family member of a Spanish governor and in return received a crude map and sparse details about the mine's location.
But the key here is the physical evidence. Waltz sold over $250,000 worth of raw gold, a fortune in the 19th century, to the U.S. Mint before his death. That's the proof that has fueled this 200-year hunt.
He reportedly shared the sparse map on his deathbed, which set off the whole myth cycle.
And the Superstition Mountains are incredibly harsh. Searchers routinely vanish or die from exposure, heatstroke, falls. The lack of precise markers, combined with the extreme heat and treacherous canyons, means the search just continues, driven purely by the historical proof that Waltz did possess that immense wealth.
Moving across continents, we encounter a more modern, high-volume treasure tied directly to the plunder of the Pacific War, Yamashita's gold.
This is a story of militarized theft on a monumental scale. General Tomoaki Yamashita, who commanded Japanese forces in Southeast Asia, oversaw the systematic looting of gold, jewels, and religious artifacts across conquered territories.
We're talking about the wealth of banks, temples, private citizens.
Everything. The spoils were allegedly consolidated and hidden across the Philippines toward the end of World War II. The hiding places themselves are legendary. Mountain caves on Luzon Island, the tunnel systems beneath Manila, historical fortresses like Fort Santiago.
The idea being that when the war ended abruptly, the gold was sealed away, meant to be recovered later, but was lost to history.
And what makes this story so profoundly complex is its political connection to Ferdinand Marcos. The most famous connection involves a man named Rogelio Roxas, a locksmith and treasure hunter.
Right, he claimed to have found a large haul in 1971, including a massive diamond-filled Buddha statue.
And what happened to Roxas' find is perhaps the most dramatic part of the tale. The moment the discovery became public, Marcos's forces allegedly seized the treasure, tortured Roxas, and appropriated the find for the dictator's personal use.
The rumors surrounding Marcos's accumulated wealth are staggering. Some experts believe he amassed close to 7,000 tons of gold, potentially valued at $400 billion today, largely sourced from this World War II plunder.
Imelda Marcos's widely reported statement that her husband didn't declare the gold because it would be embarrassing to report such wealth to tax authorities. Well, it speaks volumes about the sheer scale of the theft.
So whether Marcos seized all of it or not, the mystery persists. Yamashita's gold is no longer just war loot. It's a symbol of political corruption in the dark history of the 20th century.
Inspiring countless ongoing searches across the Philippines, even today.
Finally, let's look at the quintessential pirate cache, the one that makes every searcher dream of a deserted beach. The treasure of Lima, hidden on Cocos Island.
Coto's Island, a remote protected spot off Costa Rica. It's basically synonymous with hidden gold. The treasure originated in Lima, Peru in 1820 during the chaos of the Peruvian War of Independence.
And the viceroy sought to transport the city's vast wealth, not just coins, but jewels, stones, and crucially, 2 life-size statues of the Virgin Mary made of solid gold to Mexico for safekeeping.
The vessel was captained by a man named William Thompson. He and his crew betrayed the viceroy, slit the throats of the guards and priests, and sailed away with the priceless cargo. They supposedly hid the treasure on Cocos Island, escaping into the dense jungle after burying it.
This legend has fueled dozens of expeditions. The first recorded ones were led by John Keating, who claimed to have retrieved some of it, but insisted the majority remained hidden.
The history of the island, however, is really just marked by failure. Take August Gisler, who dedicated 19 years, from 1889 to 1908, searching this island.
In 18 years, what did he find?
6 gold coins, for 2 decades of effort. The high failure rate illustrates the brutal reality of cryptic caches. The legends are compelling, but the jungle, erosion, and time make recovery nearly impossible. The main hoard remains unfound, protected by the island's extreme remoteness and dense tropical environment.
We've focused so heavily on the financial incentive, but sometimes a lost treasure holds a value that is just incalculable. It transcends market price. This is where we move into the realm of cultural and spiritual heritage.
And our prime example here is a discovery that is almost fully explored, yet the most important part remains sealed: Qin Shi Huang's unexcavated tomb.
This tomb, located in Shaanxi province near Xi'an, is the resting place of the first Qin emperor. This is the man who unified China and commissioned the Great Wall.
Its accidental discovery by farmers in 1974 stunned the world, revealing this massive funerary compound. The famous part, of course, is the Terracotta Army.
Over 8,000 unique, life-size soldiers, chariots, horses, each meticulously crafted with individual details, all designed to protect the emperor in the afterlife. It offers an unparalleled insight into ancient Chinese military and artistic culture.
But the actual emperor's burial chamber, the pyramid mound itself, remains completely sealed, untouched. Beneath a 76-meter-tall mound, this is where the true cultural treasure lies hidden, protected by legends documented in ancient records.
And those records describe an underground palace of immense scale. They talk about models of streams and rivers flowing with mercury.
A detail that's been confirmed by modern chemical analysis, showing high levels of mercury in the soil above the tomb.
Incredible. And they also detail pavilions filled with precious stones and, maybe most terrifyingly, protection by mechanically triggered crossbows set to shoot any intruders.
So, if we know where it is, and we have confirmed elements of the ancient records, why hasn't the Chinese government just dug it up?
That's the big question, isn't it?
The rationale is pure preservation priority. Archaeologists and the government fear that immediate excavation would cause catastrophic damage. Exposure to air, moisture, fluctuations in temperature, it could instantly destroy delicate organic materials.
Things like silks, paintings, lacquerware.
Exactly. Things that have been perfectly preserved in that anaerobic environment for over 2 millennia. They're essentially waiting for technologies that don't yet exist to ensure they can excavate without losing irreplaceable historical context. The knowledge in that tomb is considered far more valuable than any risk of excavation for the sake of market display.
A very different kind of value. Which brings us to the menorah.
The menorah is another perfect example of cultural value overpowering market price. We're talking about the missing Second Temple menorah, the 7-branched candelabrum made of pure gold, a profound symbol of the Jewish people.
Its fate really illustrates the brutal reality of imperial conquest, doesn't it?
It does. When the Romans besieged and destroyed Jerusalem in 70 AD, the menorah was seized and taken to Rome as a prize of war. This entire event, the triumphant Romans carrying the menorah as spoils, is permanently immortalized in stone on the Arch of Titus in Rome.
And that is the last place we have absolute historical certainty of its location. From there, the trail just grows faint and mythical.
Right. Later historians report that it was taken from Rome by the Vandals during the sacking of 455 AD, transported to Carthage. Then, about 80 years later, the Byzantine army recovered it in 533 AD and supposedly sent it back to Constantinople, or perhaps even returned it to Jerusalem.
But its true location after the 6th century is entirely unknown.
Yeah.
Was it destroyed, lost in transit, hidden away by Byzantine emperors?
Its disappearance makes it a perpetual cultural and spiritual mystery. Unlike the San Jose or the Atocha, which are sought for their finite monetary value, the menorah is sought because of its infinite historical and religious significance. Its absence defines its legacy.
When we talk about finding treasure today, we're talking about highly capitalized ventures run by individuals whose drive often pushes the boundaries of legality, ethics, and even human safety. Let's look at the modern pioneers and the complex price of their success.
The gold standard for modern treasure hunting has to be Mel Fisher and his 16-year quest for the Atocha motherlode. Fisher really embodied the absolute obsession required to succeed.
The target was the 1622 Spanish galleon Nuestra Señora de Atocha, which sank during a hurricane off the Florida Keys. The official manifest was just astounding.
30 tons of silver ingots, 200,000 coins, gold chains, and over 1,000 Colombian emeralds. Fisher was absolutely convinced he knew where it was.
And it was a brutal, drawn-out grind that cost him his family life and led to tragedy, including the death of his son and daughter-in-law in a search vessel accident.
But his persistence paid off in 1985 when he finally found the main haul in an area he had long called the Bank of Spain.
The total haul recovered was valued at $450 million. I mean, can you imagine bringing up 40 tons of gold and silver and those 1,000-plus flawless emeralds?
It was the stuff of legend, finally realized, and the search continues today, following the known trajectory of the scattered wreck, what they call the Atocha Trail.
But Fisher's story is a complex one. It's dedication and controversy. During the Atocha search, his team stumbled upon the Henrietta Marie, a 17th-century English slave ship.
Right. And when they realized it wasn't a Spanish treasure vessel, they initially reburied the artifacts and left the site, prioritizing the gold hunt over historical preservation. The site was later excavated, but it shows where the priority was.
And the controversies didn't end there, did they?
No. The commercial side of the business led to legal trouble. In 1998, Fisher's retail subsidiary pled no contest to fraud charges for selling counterfeit coins. They had bought fake coins, stamped them, and sold them with signed certificates, claiming Fisher had found them on other wrecks.
That really shows the dangerous intersection of historical passion and the pressure to monetize a discovery.
Absolutely. Now contrast Fisher's mixed legacy with the spectacular technical genius and subsequent complete downfall of Tommy Thompson, the man who located the SS Central America.
Thompson was a technical pioneer. He led the Columbus America Discovery Group, applying advanced deep-water robotics and mapping to locate this 1857 steamship wreck.
A wreck which was carrying over $100 million in California gold destined for New York banks. Thompson's methods were revolutionary, operating at depths far beyond what previous salvors had even attempted. He located and successfully recovered massive amounts of gold bars and coins. It was a purely scientific and technical triumph.
But the success led directly to his ethical and legal failure.
Completely. After his massive haul, Thompson fled investors and creditors in 2013, going into hiding for 2.5 years before he was caught.
And since 2015, he has been incarcerated for criminal contempt. He refuses to disclose the location of the remaining recovered gold. Not the gold in the ocean, but the gold he already recovered and then hid from the courts.
That is an astonishing level of defiance. He's incurred millions in fines, yet still refuses to talk.
What did the judge say about his continued incarceration?
Well, the judge eventually concluded that further incarceration was unlikely to coerce him, noting that Thompson has feigned ignorance on anything that would point to the whereabouts of the gold. It's an intellectual standoff, a man who valued his control over the secret more than his own freedom.
It really shows how destructive the obsession with gold can be.
It does, which contrasts sharply with the hunt launched by the eccentric millionaire Forrest Fenn. His was less about financial profit and more about creating a shared cultural adventure.
So Fenn, after a terminal illness diagnosis, hid a chest valued at over $1 million. Gold nuggets, rare coins, jewelry in the Rocky Mountains in 2010.
And he challenged the public with a 24-line poem printed in his memoir, The Thrill of the Chase. The resulting cultural frenzy was unprecedented. Tens of thousands of people across New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana dedicated their lives to solving that cryptic poem.
turning the Rocky Mountains into a vast high-altitude scavenger hunt.
The treasure was finally found in Wyoming in 2020 by a former journalist, Jack Stoof, and the contents later sold at auction for $1.3 million. But the story is utterly overshadowed by the tragic human cost.
This is where the ethical line was truly crossed. The hunt led directly to the deaths of at least 5 people. Searchers who died from falls, drowning, or exposure, often unprepared for the harsh wilderness they entered.
Fenn, who died shortly after the discovery, was heavily criticized for prioritizing the romantic notion of the chase over the inherent danger he exposed the public to. While many participants found joy in adventure, the deaths highlight a dark side of the treasure obsession, that psychological draw that leads people to ignore basic safety in pursuit of a dream.
The difference between Mel Fisher grinding away for 16 years and the Colombian Navy precisely locating the San Jose in 2015 is technology. The ability to find these treasures relies on a sophisticated layering of historical knowledge and advanced science.
And crucially, the search still begins with meticulous, patient human effort. Archival research. This is the foundation. We're talking old colonial records, handwritten storm logs detailing the weather on specific dates, ship manifests used to estimate cargo value.
I read that E. Lee Spence used painstaking archival research, cross-referencing storm data and insurance claims, to help pinpoint the probable location of the SS Central America. It proves that historical documents are just as important as the deep-sea robotics.
Exactly. Once research identifies a potential search grid, then the technical toolkit comes out, especially for the deep ocean. The first essential tool is sonar.
Right, multi-beam and side-scan systems.
Side-scan sonar is crucial. It essentially paints a high-resolution photographic image of the seabed surface, allowing searchers to spot subtle anomalies that might indicate scattered wreckage.
But sonar only maps the shape of the seafloor. To find the metal beneath the sediment, you need magnetometers.
Precisely. Magnetometers measure variations in the Earth's magnetic field. Large concentrations of metal-like cannons, anchors, or tons of silver ballast alter the magnetic properties of the ocean floor. By using sonar to identify interesting features and then scanning them with magnetometers, you can pinpoint where a sunken vessel lies, even if it's mostly buried.
And for visual confirmation and recovery in the deep sea, the shift has been entirely toward robotics, AUVs and ROVs.
Autonomous underwater vehicles, or AUVs, like the Remus 6000 used for the San Jose, operate independently, mapping vast areas. ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, are tethered and controlled in real time by a ship. They provide high-def visual confirmation and, crucially, retrieval.
They have those sophisticated manipulator arms, right? Capable of delicate recovery work in just pitch-black, crushing pressure environment.
And this toolkit isn't just for the ocean. On land, the closest parallel to this deep-sea scanning tech is ground-penetrating radar, or GPR.
Which is essential for land caches like the Beale ciphers or suspected tunnels hiding Yamashita's gold. How does that work?
It emits electromagnetic energy, pulses into the ground, and reads the reflected signals. Changes in the reflection indicate objects, voids, or chambers beneath the soil surface. It allows hunters to literally peer beneath the earth without the costly and destructive process of mass excavation.
To truly grasp the cost and immense technical commitment required for these deep missions, we have to look at the recovery of the gold from HMS Edinburgh.
Oh, that's a fantastic case study. This British light cruiser sank in 1942 in the freezing Barents Sea of the Arctic Circle. It was carrying 5.5 tons of Russian payment gold, 465 bars, valued at $240 million today.
And it sank at 800 feet. That depth is far too deep for regular scuba. How did they reach it safely and perform heavy engineering work?
They used saturation diving, which is the pinnacle of deep-sea human intervention. Divers lived in high-tech pressurized habitats, their bodies saturated with breathing gases, usually a mixture of helium and oxygen.
And why is saturation necessary?
To avoid fatal decompression sickness, the bends, if a diver stays at 800 feet for more than a few minutes, they'd need weeks of decompression time to surface safely. Saturation diving lets them stay at depth for days or weeks at a time, performing complex work, and then decompress once at the end of the mission.
That sounds incredibly dangerous and uncomfortable.
The conditions were brutal. They needed hot water suits piped from the surface just to survive the freezing Arctic water. They had to cut through thick, armored plating on the ship to reach the bomb room where the gold was stored. The cost of an operation like that runs into the millions, illustrating that treasure hunting at this level is pure industrial engineering.
So the advanced technology makes finding treasure possible, but that often just marks the beginning of a costly, lengthy legal war. The central tension in this entire field is the battle between finders versus sovereign nations.
That's it exactly. It seems like every high-profile find, from the San Jose to the Atocha, ends up in court. And the key legal shift happening right now is that the ground is decisively shifting away from the salvers and towards state patrimony.
So courts are increasingly holding that cultural or historical artifacts found off a nation's coast belong to that nation. The argument is that the cultural heritage value outweighs the salver's commercial interest.
That's right. The San Jose ruling is the major recent precedent here.
And we saw this reinforced dramatically in the infamous Black Swan case involving the Mercedes frigate, didn't we?
We did. That Spanish warship sank in 1804. An American company found it and recovered 600,000 silver and gold coins. Incredible haul. Spain sued, asserting sovereign immunity and state patrimony.
And Spain won, forcing the U.S. salver, Odyssey Marine Exploration, to return the entire haul, estimated at $500 million, to Spain.
It was a landmark ruling. Solvers are realizing that while technology had made the ocean floor transparent, their rights to keep what they find are becoming increasingly opaque. The courts are prioritizing the wreck as a piece of cultural heritage.
Which brings us to the argument made by archaeologists, perfectly illustrated by the discovery of the Dutch East India Company ship, the Rooswick.
The Rooswick sank in the English Channel in 1740, carrying official silver cargo potentially worth $100 million. But for archaeologists, the financial value was secondary to the story the wreck was telling about 18th century maritime economics.
And what was that story?
Well, archaeologists discovered that an estimated 50% of the silver on board was privately smuggled money. It wasn't the official VOC pieces of eight. It was older, non-official silver coinage, often Dutch dupetans, mixed in with the cargo.
So the entire operation, from the captain down to the surgeons, was engaged in illegal private trade, trying to profit from the lucrative spice routes outside the control of the company.
Precisely. The Rooswick became an invaluable time capsule because it provided tangible proof that corruption and illicit private trading were systemic, involving the entire crew hierarchy. It revealed cultural and historical details that no textbook or official record would ever admit.
This is the core ethical conflict, isn't it? Archaeologists argue that without government or academic protection, these historical time capsules would simply be mined for marketable items, destroying the irreplaceable context.
Right, the non-marketable cargo, the structure of the wreck, the positioning of the crew's belongings, all the things that provide the real knowledge.
But the salvers counter that without their massive investment of capital and technology, these wrecks would just erode unseen.
It's a huge tension. Preservation of history versus the inherent right to profit from one's expensive, high-risk discovery efforts. But the legal pendulum is clearly swinging toward preservation.
What a tour. Locked treasures are clearly so much more than a dollar amount or a simple tale of hidden riches. This deep dive shows us that they represent a crucial intersection of human longing, cutting-edge technological capability, and the political, sometimes bloody, fight over history itself.
Indeed. The pursuit of wealth often leads, perhaps unintentionally, to the discovery of knowledge. Whether it's understanding illicit trade on a Dutch East India ship, or mapping the engineering of the first Chinese emperor's tomb, or watching international law adapt to a $20 billion find. These caches reveal the deep connections of empire, war, and trade that shaped the modern world.
What stands out to me is the dual nature of these quests. Are they about gold or are they about meaning? The tragic human cost of the Forrest Fenn hunt, the deception of Tommy Thompson, and the 16-year sacrifice of Mel Fisher all suggest that the thrill of the hunt, the chase for the impossible prize, is the ultimate reward, regardless of what's found.
It's a great point. Technology answers questions, but it also exposes new mysteries. We can locate a galleon at extreme depth, but we cannot solve the ethical or political questions of who deserves to own the past.
Every mystery solved, whether it's the exact fate of a WWII ship or the origin of a cryptic code, opens another map for exploration, whether that map is physical, ethical, or historical. That pursuit of understanding, as complex and dangerous as it can be, is what ultimately endures.
We hope you enjoyed this deep dive.
Stay curious, stay grounded, and watch out for the next one.